Diplomacy has now passed, and the United States feels it has to deliver a military message to Saddam Hussein before there can be any more diplomacy, and that's what we're seeing right now.
All right, thank you very much, John Dancy at the State Department. We'll have continuing coverage of America at War, Operation Desert Storm, still underway in the Persian Gulf, right after this.
From NBC News, America at War continues. Here is Tom Brokaw.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is now 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the Operation Desert Storm, the American and Allied attack on military targets in Kuwait and Iraq, continues unabated. It has been going on now for about 16 hours altogether, by my judgment. A little more than that, as a matter of fact. It began last night at 7 o'clock. Eastern Standard Time, and there have been wave after wave of bomber and fighter attack plane attacks on military positions in Kuwait and also in Iraq. We want to go to NBC's Arthur Kent, who is in Saudi Arabia. He has some additional information for us. Arthur?
Tom, there's a briefing going on now here in this airbase city in northeastern Saudi Arabia. The deputy governor of Saudi Arabia's eastern province, Prince Fahd bin Salman, who is a member of the Saudi royal family, has confirmed to us that there was a significant exchange, military exchange on the ground on the Kuwaiti-Saudi border near the Saudi coastal town of Khafji. We told you earlier that Iraqi mobile artillery had fired some artillery shells in and had torched an oil storage tank there. The deputy governor, Prince Fahd, has mentioned that 40 Iraqi artillery shells hit the town of Khafji, that there was an evacuation plan in place for that town of 35,000 Saudi civilians, and that they were evacuated, he says, in an orderly manner. Now, additional to that, Tom, the deputy governor has confirmed that that Iraqi attack was, in his words, repulsed. Now, that would seem to jive with the information we've had from one other source, that U.S. Marine Harrier jump jets and some Air Force A-10 ground attack planes had actually crossed the border and engaged those Iraqi artillery units. At any rate, the Saudi officials, again a member of the Saudi royal family, is telling us that that attack has been silenced and that the attack has been repulsed. So perhaps time for officials in Washington to tell us exactly what's going on up there, and whether in fact there is direct contact between ground units or marine air units with Iraqi artillery units on the ground.
Arthur Kent, let's be clear about that based on what we know so far. An exchange of artillery fire, or was there some, in effect, hand-to-hand combat, ground units firing at other ground units?
No, Tom, what we've been led to understand is that once the artillery fire began and continued, we're talking 40 shells, hardly a barrage, but significant. Once a target was hit, that Marine aircraft and Air Force A-10 ground attack planes took to the skies and actually went forward. Now, all we've got is a confirmation that the attack was repulsed. One can only assume that the artillery was silenced. If that was done by aircraft, it would have meant an incursion into Kuwaiti airspace to strike back at those Iraqi guns.
All right, we'll have NBC's Fred Francis at the Pentagon get on that and see what additional information he can come up with. There's just been a briefing at the White House. NBC's John Cochran is there now with the latest on that. John?
Tom, the White House confirmed what we suspected and probably already knew for sure, which is that there's no intention on the part of President Bush to order any halt to the bombing, to give Saddam Hussein a chance, a respite, an opportunity to think about surrendering. The president's spokesman, Marlon Fitzwater, said Saddam Hussein knows how to surrender. And that's when we got into a bit of a controversy over what is meant by surrender, because classically, look back to World War II, other wars, when you talk about surrendering, you normally mean you lay down your arms, you just give up, you let your country be occupied by the victors, and the leaders of the country step down from power. under some intense questioning, Marlon Fitzwater said, no, that's not what President Bush does have in mind. What we're really saying is comply simply with the UN resolutions, and that goes back to Saddam Hussein pulling his troops out of Kuwait and not engaging in any hostilities, Tom.
All right, thank you, John Cochran. We're going to go now to a news conference in Washington with Nasser al-Sabah, who is the Kuwaiti ambassador to the United States. We saw a good deal of him at the beginning of this crisis in the Persian Gulf, and he's speaking now.
The Saudi-Kuwaiti border, as a result of anti-aircraft shelling, rescue operations are now underway. We will, of course, keep you updated as the situation develops. Also, there are reports of Iraqi defections in Kuwait, but I hasten to add that the numbers are so far not yet unconfirmed. To conclude this, let me say, on behalf of my people and on behalf of my government, we are deeply grateful to all our brothers, allies, and friends, led by the United States of America and our brothers in Saudi Arabia, in coming to our assistance to liberate Kuwait. We hope this will conclude swiftly and decisively. I shall now take your questions.
What are you hearing from inside Kuwait about the damage, casualties, or possible retaliation by Iraqi?
The sketchy reports we're getting now are very sketchy, and there is a lot of defection, a lot of casualties by the Iraqi forces, and we are continuing to monitor by our private channels with Kuwait as to the situation inside.
There were some earlier reports from Kuwait Radio Kuwait, that there was some ground action. Do you know anything about that in Kuwait, inside Kuwait City?
We have no confirmation of these reports yet.
Already in your announced Kuwait committed to greater democracy and leading Kuwait. We've heard some from young Kuwaitis that they're doubtful about this.
Well, we are addressing ourselves now to a much more important fact, which is the military operation that's taking place. I will have the chance to respond to your question maybe at a later date when things are quieter. I have no information on that report, and I cannot confirm it.
Nasser al-Sabah, who is the Kuwaiti ambassador to the United States, talking about what we think. We joined that in progress. We think that there was an exchange of ground forces at Al-Fajr, I think, in Saudi Arabia, and we think that there was an oil tank that was hit there, maybe an exchange of artillery fire. At any rate, NBC's Arthur Kent is standing by in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia right now, with the governor of that province in Saudi Arabia, and I think he has some additional information on it as we get the robes in order. Arthur?
Yes, Tom. I'm pleased to be standing with Prince Fahd bin Salman, member of the Saudi royal family and vice governor of the eastern province of Saudi Arabia. Prince Fahd, we've heard reports of an artillery exchange, the repulsing of an attack. Exactly what is happening on the Saudi border with Kuwait?
First of all, the city of Al-Khafji was evacuated, and we had plans for it to be evacuated for months because we think it could be ground for battle.
It's very close to Iraqi forces.
It is close to Iraqi forces, of course, close to Kuwaiti borders. And yesterday there were 40 shells. They were shelling the area, and they only managed to hit one oil tank. and it was half empty.
Now, you've reported to us here that artillery was silenced. How did they silence the Iraqi artillery?
The Allied forces have done that. All of the Allied forces, they have managed to do that with helicopters and other airplanes.
It required, of course, flying into Kuwaiti airspace.
Oh yes, they have done that.
Now, have you reports of this happening anywhere else along the Saudi-Kuwaiti border?
I'm not sure. I wouldn't speculate in that. But again, as I said before, I am here to assure everyone, and through your NBC station, especially Saudi and Kuwaiti students in the States, that things are all right here, and everybody's fine, and there is nothing to worry about. We are sorry to see the force has to be used against Saddam Hussein, but he's the one who asked for it.
Now, Prince Fahd, I noticed a moment ago, we were standing here watching some Tornado ground attack aircraft taking off.
Yes.
There seemed to be a buoyancy in your spirit.
I wish I was with them.
Why?
Because I want to make sure that justice is done. You don't know what happened to the Kuwaitis. No one knows what happened to the Kuwaitis.
Have we been missing the story all this time?
Well, I think a lot of people have been missing the story, but a lot of torture took place in that country. Unbelievable.
Now, what about the strategic interests? Obviously, for Saudi Arabia, is this very good news for you? It's a very drastic step taken to war in this
It's never
region.
good news for us to see Arab fight one another, but Saddam Hussein, everyone appealed to him. The king appealed to him, the custodian of the two holy mosques. In his letters, he was soft, kind to him, tried very hard with him to come to reason. But he was ignorant, and he asked for, as your commercial, he asked for it and he got it. Just did not happen to be Toyota.
Now, during the day-to-day, Saddam Hussein used very harsh language with regard to King Fahd, Saudi King Fahd, denouncing him for his role in what he said was an attack of terrorism on the state of Iraq.
But we are used to such speeches. This is the same way that they have been using since the crisis started.
In your view, should there be a pause now in these very intensive attacks on military targets in Kuwait and Iraq?
He should be out of Kuwait now. That's all. He should be out of Kuwait right now.
Is there an argument to be put that perhaps a pause should be given him to allow him to withdraw, or is public opinion here so ferocious, so firm that the attacks must continue?
A pause with Saddam Hussein? Would you do that?
Would you?
Would you?
You know him better than I.
No, I don't. Would you?
Okay. What do you think the?
I don't know. This is up to the politicians to decide. It's not up to me to speculate on that.
Now, you know, there were a lot of comments that Saudi Arabia's armed forces were not prepared when Saddam Hussein on August 2nd first rolled into Kuwait, and that the response was very uneven. How do you feel tonight?
We were ready for him as far as Saudi borders are concerned, but we felt he had such a massive force that was required from us to ask the brotherly Arab nations, and as you know, there are many Arab troops in the area, and of course ask Muslim countries as well to help, as well as friendly countries to help, to avoid a bigger disaster.
In last night's massive attacks, of course, aircraft from Kuwait, those aircraft that survived the invasion and rebased here to Saudi Arabia, and Saudi aircraft, up to 150 Saudi aircraft, we understand, took part in the attack with British, American, and later French planes. Was it important? Is it important to you as a Saudi to know that your armed forces are involved in this attack?
Of course. Of course. We are with the Kuwaitis, liberating Kuwait from uncalled for invasion.
Well, Prince Fahd bin Salman, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure is mine, sir.
And back to you in New York, Tom.
Okay.
Well, he was checking with one of his aides about how well it went, and it went well indeed. The Saudis had a considerable presence at the International Hotel there in Tehran. Representatives of Prince Bandar, who is the Saudi ambassador to the United States, they were there from the Information Ministry, and a number of other people who came from the central government. as well being as helpful as they could be. We'll be back with more on all of this, America at War, Operation Desert Storm, after this.
It hurts. Sinus pain, sinus pressure. It really, really hurts. A painkiller alone can't stop it. A decongestant alone can't stop it. Signatab can. It combines Tylenol's painkiller with Sudafed's decongestant, so Signatab works better than either one alone, without any drowsiness. No wonder it's America's #1 sinus medicine. It stops the pain. It stops the pressure. Signatab stops the pain.
Double, double your refreshment. Double, double your enjoyment. Oh, no single gum. Double freshens your mouth like double mint gum. Double, double your refreshment. Double, double your delightment. Oh, no single gum. Double freshens your mouth like double fresh, double good. Come on and double it. Double mint gum.
There's no single gum like it.
When I think of everything I put in my hair to make it shiny, more manageable, and all it took was a touch of VO5. Yeah, VO5.
VO5 hairdressing. A touch does so much.
Wow, I just tried VO5 for the first time. Yeah, the stuff in the tube your old man used for control. The stuff that's been around forever. Now I know why.
VO5 hairdressing. A touch does so much.
I'm a second-half quarterback.
That was a stellar performance.
15 pieces of chicken or a supersized bucket of hot wings, just $9.99 each.
Anytime you're ready, gentlemen.
Super buckets from KFC.
Come on, Dad.
Doctors measure back pain by how far you can bend. Extra Strength Dones is made for back pain relief with an ingredient these pain relievers don't have. Dones makes back pain go away. Extra Strength Dones, made for back pain relief.
Nothing so unifies a nation as the opening days of a war in which that nation is involved. The United States is smack in the midst, of course, of Operation Desert Storm, with continuing sorties from all kinds of attack fighter planes and other long-range bombers in the Persian Gulf. Before the attack began, this country was somewhat divided, although generally supportive of the president's policies in the Persian Gulf. In San Francisco at this moment is one of America's best-known pollsters, Lou Harris. Mr. Harris, have you been taking any soundings in the past 24 hours?
Tom, no, but were in the field right up until the eve of the order from the president.
And what was the judgment of the people about the wisdom of going to war?
Well, then we were divided 57 to 39%, but in favor of going. But there was a big reluctant 40% who said, look, we only want to support war if it's short and the casualties are minimum. And those are still conditions, Tom, which people have on this war.
And Mr. Harris, do you think that the American people clearly and fully understood why we had such a major military commitment in the Persian Gulf?
Tom, I'd say this, that people say they knew it was to stop aggression, not really to get the oil supplies secured, but there was this reluctance about committing American lives to doing the job. Now, I noticed this discussion which has gone on this morning about demanding surrender from Saddam Hussein, and let me say that 78% of the American people expect that there will be an end of Saddam Hussein's rule of Iraq in this war. In other words, if we're going to do it, get him out.
If it does go well, does that mean that the president can do this kind of action again in the future with the support of the American people, or is this a one-shot deal?
Well, Tom, there's a hardcore 25% in this country who would oppose any such action, but a swing vote, I would say, of about 35% who say if it's something which affects the United States, can protect the peace of the world, then they'll go along and do it. But the key is, and I think, again, the threshold is, if we can do it antiseptically through bombings and not through loss of heavy troop concentrations, okay. And I'd say the acid test on this one is if we send the troops across the border into Kuwait to liberate that, how high will the casualties be? And that's on the mind of a lot of people today.
Lou Harris, thank you very much for being with us from San Francisco. It is on the minds of the military planners as well. They'd like to avoid that altogether, although all of the experts say that no war has ever been won with just missile and air power alone. The hope is that those Iraqi troops in Kuwait can be so softened up that it will be effectively just a cleaning up exercise of some kind or another. And that is a little antiseptic as a description as well. Cleaning up means that there will be shooting and that there will be deaths and people who are wounded as well. Let's go now to Faith Daniels. Faith?
The news is unsettling to people in all parts of the country. It is particularly upsetting to children. This is the first time they are seeing this country at war. We go now to New Orleans reporter from WDSU, Greg Prather, who is at the St. Joseph Workers' School with some children there. Greg, how are the children receiving this news?
Faith, if you could put it down to one thing, it's very bad. Most of the children here are opposed to war. This is the first time that war has touched their lives. They have discussed this subject for weeks, as have other students throughout the nation. Today is no different. The only thing different, though, is that we have now actually come to war, and we are eavesdropping, so to speak, on their discussion today.
To what degree have they been affected by this? How much are they consumed by it, talking about it, thinking about it? Are they sleeping?
How much are you thinking about this war? Is it a daily thing? Are you sleeping on this? What are your thoughts at this point?
Well, at first, when it first started, I really didn't recognize it at first. But then, as war started to progress and the thought of war became more legible day to day, then I decided that, yes, I am as a part of this as anyone else is. So I started to think about it almost every chance I got to think how many people would be affected by it and why.
And you came up with what answer? Do you think that people should have to die for this?
No, I don't. I think that this war is very, very unnecessary. I think that President Bush and Saddam Hussein could have came to an agreement and could have strived further for peace. I think that a lot of people's lives will be lost and their family with them.
Some very adult concerns there being expressed.
I think that the war could have been avoided if they would have tried to talk to one another about it and tried to come to a solution instead of having a war.
Greg, do they feel as though all of their questions are being answered and dealt with? Are they getting enough information from their teachers, from their parents?
Are you learning about this war? Are you getting enough information from your parents and from your teachers?
Yes, I am.
Enough to make a decision on if this is right or wrong?
Yes and no sometimes.
What do you mean?
Sometimes I feel by watching the news and hearing it from others that I know enough about it, but then I don't feel as close to the war as I think I should, in a way.
Greg Prather, thank you, and thank you to the children there. Very, very adult concerns. Please ask them for me, if you will. At what point they became truly concerned? Was it a gradual thing that built up? And how did they react when the moment they heard that, yes, bombs had dropped in Baghdad?
When you first heard that war had actually started, what went through your mind?
Well, I was watching TV, and, I went in the den by my father, and he told me that, the war had started. And I was so upset and astounded. I walked through I just walked through my house. And I really couldn't tell you what exactly went through my mind. I was so stunned,
Likewise, what were your feelings when you found out that war had actually started?
Well, this is the first time I've had an experience of war, and I was just scared because I had not been through the experience before, and I was scared, astounded.
Greg, thank you to you and to all the children there. We appreciate it.
All right, Faith.
NBC News coverage of America at War continues.
It does appear that an attack of some kind is underway tonight.
Last night, America went to war. Tonight, that story in a special one-hour edition of NBC Nightly News.
From Channel 4, this is a Gulf War News Extra.
Good afternoon, I'm Jeff McAtee. A top French official says there is now no chance of a serious chemical attack on Saudi Arabia or Israel. The official says Iraq's chemical weapons were among the first hit by Allied forces. And the role of Turkey has now switched from defense to offense. Turkey is allowing Allied forces to use its bases to launch attacks. Until now, Turkey has been used only defensively. The country is a prime strategic location for attacks against Iraq. At Fort Campbell, military observers are saying that it may be a day or two before ground troops join the battle. Carlos Bain is standing by live at the fort with this update. Carlos?
Jeff, within the hour, we expect at least one group of Kentucky National Guard troops to leave here and head for Saudi Arabia. One member of the 623rd Field Artillery Unit, based out of Springfield, Kentucky, told us that last night that he was getting ready to ship out of here today, and we expect that flight to head out sometime around 2:30 this afternoon. As for information flowing out of here, they're really telling us everything that we've already heard, and that is that no ground troops have started taking part in Operation Desert Shield. Now, there is supposed to be another hearing later on this afternoon talking about support groups for members of the 101st, their family members, what will be done for them as we get closer to what might happen to them. We'll have an update on that later on this afternoon. Back to you.
All right, we'll check with you then. And we'll be right back after this.
Sofa Connection is your connection for free furniture. Sure, just when you thought you'd got the greatest deal on one of our $4.99 sofas, we throw in the love seat absolutely free. 3 styles to choose from: Queen Anne, scatterback cotton print, or contemporary, in stock and ready for delivery. An exceptional deal at $4.99. Add the free love seat. It's an unheard of value. But hurry, it won't last long. Sofa, free love seat. Make the connection, Sofa Connection, Rivergate and Hickory Hollow.
It's the place.
Definitely.
If you're into Nintendo games,
and who isn't?
Then get into Walmart.
We're talking serious Nintendo game store.
Because the only thing hotter than Nintendo games
is Walmart's price.
The Game Boy system is $89.97 every day, and Radar Mission for Game Boy is just $19.67.
Incredible!
Turtles Follow the Foot Clan is just $26.38. The only thing hotter than Nintendo games is Walmart's price.
Walmart, my allowance, thanks you.
Walmart.
Yes!
Always.
So far, the success reported by the Allied forces is good news for the U.S. economy. Brentwood stockbroker Michael Goldston watched this morning as the Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed nearly 100 points in the first hour of trading. Goldston says investors are breathing a big sigh of relief. Airline stocks are among the gainers, and that's an indication that fuel prices will not soar.
I think in the first hour it has shown that we are very optimistic about the future, that the conflict has been handled on as good a basis as we could have expected. Consumers and investors are voting with their pocketbook by buying stocks that they've waited and held decisions on before. We're noticing that stock prices and transportation stocks are soaring relative to the Dow, which reflects the fact that oil prices are dropping today.
Goldston warns the strong economic response will slow if the number of Allied casualties rise significantly or if other discouraging war news develops. That's Extra. I'm Jeff McAtee. We'll be back here in 25 minutes. Now we return to NBC's coverage of America at War.
Channel 4 and NBC bringing you full Gulf coverage.
The U.S. was clear that well, the sticking point war. has always been linkage to the Palestinian issue. Nicole, you led a student demonstration on Tuesday. What was your message then?
Well, my message was mainly coming from the African American community. African Americans are overrepresented in the United States Army and the armed forces, and we're coming out to say that they are overrepresented because there are lack of economic and educational opportunities in this country for African Americans and other people of color and poor people as well. And we feel that we are against this war. We feel that the issues, domestic issues, need to be addressed and worked on, and monies need to be put into those programs before we go over into another part of the world and get involved in matters that we, quite frankly, should not be involved in.
How do you think the Afro-Americans who are serving in this war would feel about your opposition to their involvement?
I think that they're quite torn, frankly, because they had no choice but to go into the military in order to get an education or to go on financially with their lives. And I do feel they're torn. We have support from the African American community and love for them there. and we care about them, that they're there, but we also want to start addressing these issues that need to be addressed within this country to bring them home.
That is the next question, because now that the war has begun, there is no turning back. What do you want now? What do you want your protest message to be now?
We want to get the communities, all peoples together. We as students have formed a national group that will be meeting on the 27th to discuss coming together as students to bring the troops home. We want to end what's going on. We want to bring them back.
Nicole Pearson,
Yes.
Hassan Abed.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We'll be back in just a moment with more.
From NBC News, America at War continues. Here is Tom Brokaw.
Good afternoon again, everyone. It is now 10:30 p.m. in the Persian Gulf, and American air attacks against targets in Iraq and Kuwait are continuing at this hour. No one is monitoring the effects of these bombing raids more carefully than the Israelis, who were worried that, of course, that they would be attacked by the Iraqis and drawn into this war, and then all the equations the president may have made would have been for naught. Let's go now to NBC's Martin Fletcher, who is in Tel Aviv at this hour. And Martin, Israeli intelligence has been hard at work?
That's right, Tom, and they're issuing a message which is not exactly too encouraging. There's a sense of euphoria in Israel at the success of the American operation, but military intelligence here are saying, don't get carried away, it's much too early to celebrate. They're saying that the Iraqi threat is still far from finished. The intelligence estimate here is that the amount of damage that the American operation has done so far against the Iraqi fighting forces, they put it in terms of percentage. They say more than 50% of the Iraqi threat still exists. They say that much less than 50% of the Iraqi Air Force was actually destroyed, and they're not too sure about the the missiles. They say that a good part of the fixed missile launchers were destroyed, but they're much less clear about the extent of damage done to the mobile missile launchers. Iraq has about 50 fixed missile launchers. Most of those could have been destroyed. About another 30 mobile missile launchers, though, are still wandering about, mostly in the south of the country, facing the American forces. So the Israelis are saying that the Iraqi offensive potential still exists and could well be turned against America, could well be turned against Israel.
What is their judgment on the effectiveness of the Iraqi Air Force altogether if that 50% of the fleet did survive, in fact?
Well, that's a good question, Tom, because it sounds dramatic, doesn't it, that 50% still exists, but in fact the Iraqi Air Force has never been considered by Israel, certainly, as a major threat, and shouldn't be either by the United States. However, it's a nuisance. It can still cause a certain amount of damage, a certain amount of loss of life. The Israelis do say that the airfields have been badly damaged, the runways are badly damaged, though they can be fixed quite easily. Flight control equipment and installations were badly damaged. Roads were damaged, which is important because the rockets that would fuel them, the warheads for the missiles are kept separately from the missiles, and strategic roads have been dealt serious harm. But so the offensive ability of the Iraqi Air Force is not great, but it exists. And although it can't harm, it won't do any serious damage to the American Air Force, it could certainly cause some death.
All right, thanks very much, Martin Fletcher in Tel Aviv. Let's go to the Pentagon now. NBC's Fred Francis has been listening in from that point. And Fred, is that the judgment of the Pentagon as well, that about half of the Iraqi air fleet still is intact?
No, a bit more than that, Tom. We were hearing judgments here about 75 to 80% has been knocked out, and those aircraft that were not destroyed will be unable to take off because their runways have been cratered so badly. So that threat to U.S. forces is not ended, but it's certainly diminished greatly. What we're talking about is perhaps 200 aircraft left, and most of those won't be able to take off. I think the greater threat is one that my colleague Martin Fletcher spoke about, and that is that the mobile missiles have not been destroyed. There were fixed launchers, Tom, fixed launching platforms in southwestern Iraq that were destroyed almost immediately at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time last night. But the mobile launchers are still out there. The United States intelligence people are trying to pick those up, to see where they are, and those have to be destroyed. Until those are destroyed, both U.S. forces in Saudi Arabia and the Israeli population will be at some risk. Although I must tell you that mobile launchers are not nearly as accurate as those in fixed launch positions, so the risk is not great. I think it's prudent on the part of the Israelis to still be concerned until this is over, and we have many, many days yet. I just want to emphasize that. Many, many days yet of bombing. They're taking this slow and methodical, and it'll be a while before they get all of Saddam's offensive capability, his air and his air defense, his air and his ground-to-ground missiles. So there are a few other points that I want to bring up, Tom. The pounding of Iraqi Republican Guards Division, those are those crack elite Iraqi soldiers, 150,000 troops with 500 state-of-the-art T-72 Soviet tanks. Those troops are located in northern Kuwait and in southern Iraq, and those were being held in reserve in case the United States punched an armored force up through Saudi Arabia into Kuwait. The Republican Guards divisions have now come under attack. Last night they hit Corps and division headquarters, and throughout the day they were hitting command and control. They were hitting command and control facilities, but those the actual tanks have now come under attack. We're told that A-10s, those are the Warthogs, and other attack aircraft have been attacking some of those tanks, and this is important, Tom, because when we talk about surrender or Saddam giving up, and nobody believes he's going to do that quickly in this building, but eventually that's going to happen, because I think the outcome of this conflict is foretold. Eventually that will happen, but the United States does not, in this building, the Pentagon does not want to occupy Iraq, but he does not want Saddam capitulating and still having an army, especially these Republican Guards divisions. So when he surrenders or capitulates, they want his army flattened, and that process has begun with A-10s and Apache helicopters have started to attack some of those, but no ground forces, as near as we can tell, no American ground forces have crossed into Kuwait to engage the enemy, and I don't expect that to happen for quite some time. Tom?
Francis, we want to go back to Israel because Martin Fletcher has some additional information for us now on Israeli fears about the prospect that they still could come under attack. Martin?
Well, Tom, the Israeli intelligence is telling the Israeli people to keep tight, to stick tight with their state of emergency, not to leave home, and to keep their gas masks closed, because they believe that if the Iraqis still do have this offensive potential, which they believe they do have, then they feel tonight is the night. They feel that Iraq will not waste any more time. Will not want to risk that its remaining missiles will be destroyed by the Americans, and they feel that if they were going to attack Israel, tonight is the time they'll do that. So the Israelis are saying very much that the danger still exists here. They feel, however, if the Iraqis do not attack tonight, then by the time tomorrow night comes along, after one more night today of American attacks, a full day tomorrow, by tomorrow night the Israeli military intelligence feels the threat to Israel from Iraq will probably be over.
In Saudi Arabia, NBC's Arthur Kent, are you picking up any of that as well, Arthur, that more than 50% of the Iraqi Air Force still is capable of launching a counterstrike, and that Israel still is at risk?
Well, Tom, in a roundabout fashion, yes. I mean, we are unable to get accurate military estimates of what is left over there, because military officials here are still not talking to us about those kinds of numbers and statistics. However, just as he was leaving here, the vice governor of the eastern province of Saudi Arabia, Prince Fahd bin Salman, told me that they are recommending that everybody keep hold of their gas masks and keep the route to the bomb shelter, or the rocket shelter, as it were, out of the corner of one eye, because there is still the danger of a retaliatory strike from Iraqi forces. And the Saudis are advising that the state of preparedness here not be changed one bit. Just one other point, speaking to something Fred mentioned at the Pentagon in Washington, the news that the A-10 ground attack planes, the tank killers, the Warthogs, and Apache helicopters are flying over Kuwait and working on pounding the elite divisions of the Republican Guard, does, of course, along with those reports which have now been confirmed of the helicopter and Harrier strikes into Kuwait to silence Iraqi artillery, move us into a new period of peril or danger for U.S. Air Force and Marine Air servicemen, because now, although electronic countermeasures can help to a certain extent with those high-flying jets bombing targets in Iraq and Kuwait, these aircraft, as you know, Tom, are working within visual range of Iraqi gunners on the ground, Warthogs in particular, diving, capable of diving to a tremendously close range their Iraqi targets. So we'll be trying to find out exactly what their success is, and most eager to find out what the loss ratios are among those forces. Tom?
NBC's Arthur Kent still at his post in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. We want to go to Washington now to Martin Indek, who's with the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. He has just returned from a trip to Saudi Arabia and to Israel. I think, Mr. Indek, that it's worth going back over the Israeli factor once again. There are still fears in that country that there will be an attack on Israel. And the reason that is so important, of course, is that Israel has made it clear it will strike back and strike back hard. That could change the equation in the Arab world in a hurry, couldn't it?
It could, although I think there are two considerations that have to be taken into account. First of all, as your reporters have suggested, the threat to Israel has already been dramatically reduced by the fact that those launches, fixed launches, have been taken out. There were some 20 to 40 of those in the West that could hit Israel. They were the primary concern of Israeli military planners, and those have been taken care of, and the Israelis have confirmed that. So what we're talking about is a much a lower level of threat. Secondly, I think from my discussions with the Israeli leadership, they understand very well the dangers involved in getting Israel engaged in this conflict, and they would prefer to stay out. The policy of low profile is something that they would prefer to adopt, and they understand that Saddam Hussein will try to drag them in. And there, I think, is good political coordination with Washington on this subject, and provided that no serious damage is done to Israel, even if they fire off one or two mobile launches, I would think that there would be a tendency, stronger tendency in Israel not to respond unless some serious damage is done.
But Mr. Indek, just as there is a Murphy's Law, there's also a Middle East law, which is the same. If it can go wrong, it will, and we have witnessed that in recent and long-term history there as well.
Yes, I wouldn't want to be Pollyannish about it. We're not out of the woods yet on this subject or in terms of the wider campaign. But on the other hand, it's a different situation that we face today and that Israel faces tonight than it faced last night.
We want to show you, while you and I are talking, some demonstrations that have just been made available to us. Anti-American demonstrations now in the streets of Algeria today. There were other protests against Operation Desert Storm going on as well in other Muslim nations. How much of this theatrics, how much of this a real danger to the United States and its interest in the Middle East?
Well, look, we have to expect that there are going to be these kinds of demonstrations, particularly in places like Algeria, Tunisia, and Jordan. I'm surprised that there haven't been more, actually, already. The question is, to what extent does this affect the policies of Arab governments? These are not democracies. The Arab street can have a role, but it's not going to be determining unless it's really major widespread revolts. One of the key factors here is the extent to which we are seen as prevailing in the war, and that certainly seems to be the case at the moment. If it's a long, drawn-out war in which Saddam Hussein survives with his large part of his military intact for 2 to 3 weeks or more than that, then I think the Arab street begins to play more of a role. But provided that the momentum is with us, that he looks like he's on the defensive, that he is unable to inflict any major casualties on us or on Israel, then I don't think that the Arab street is going to become a serious factor.
What do you think the impact of the Saddam Hussein broadcast today on Baghdad radio saying that there's a war between believers and non-believers stepping up his rhetoric, calling the United States infidels once again, the great Satan in the White House, George Bush. Does he have any credibility with that kind of language, because he has been decidedly singular and a man who is ruled by gun, not by Quran?
Right, and I think that's a very good point, and I think that is understood. I was just talking a few days ago to a sheikh in the West Bank who is a leader of the Islamic trend, that is Hamas, the fundamentalists, who was lecturing me on the kind of infidel that Saddam Hussein was, that they understood very well that he was not a religious man. The worrying thing here is that Saddam Hussein still has the ability to broadcast. And I would be concerned about that. We need to find a way to take care of that quickly, because he will try all of those kinds of tricks, and it would be much better if we could take out his broadcasting facilities so that he doesn't have that ability. There is a certain resonance that cannot be denied. The important thing to understand is that in the 5-6 months lead up to this, he's tried all of these things and it hasn't worked. And provided that we look like the winners and he looks like the loser, I don't think it's going to work this time.
Martin Indyk, thank you very much. From the Washington Institute of Near East Policy, just returned from a trip to that part of the world, to Saudi Arabia and also to Israel. We'll have continuing coverage here on NBC of America at War, Operation Desert Storm, after this.
Same medicine found in the prescription drug Motrin.
Same medicine found in the prescription drug Motrin.
Same as in Motrin in non-prescription strength.
Did you ever notice that a lot of pain relievers seem to be saying the same thing? Well, if you want the same medicine found in the prescription drug Motrin, wouldn't it just be simpler to ask for Motrin IB? Non-prescription strength Motrin IB. You can't buy a more effective pain reliever without a prescription. Motrin IB. Accept no alternatives.
The music, the mood, the food, with something a little extra.
I get a kick out of you.
Heinz 57 sauce has a zesty, bold, exciting flavor that gives a little kick to all your favorite foods. Try Heinz 57 sauce.
'Cause I get a kick
It's like ketchup
out of you.
with a kick.
Enjoy extra sugar-free gum.
You get extra flavor, extra fun in extra sugar-free gum.
The long-lasting sugar-free gum is extra with NutraSweet for extra refreshing flavor that lasts an extra long time.
Extra flavor for that extra long flight. Extra flavor for that extra long night. When you're chewing extra, the extra fresh flavor lasts an extra long time.
Extra lasts extra long.
A sink isn't the only place Woolite cleans safely and gently. Use the delicate cycle, and a lot of your hand washing won't need your hands.
You've only practiced an hour.
The special softness of Northern comes from two sheets being quilted together, and quilting makes a difference you can feel.
Kathy?
We're back with continuing coverage of America at War, Operation Desert Storm. The whole world is tuned in on all of this, of course, and this country particularly because of our heavy political and personal investment in what is going on at this hour in the Persian Gulf. It is on the minds and in the hearts of all of us as well. NBC's Faith Daniels now. Faith?
Tom, the concerns of Americans everywhere are perhaps magnified. For a woman in Florida, Miami, Florida, her name is Rena Ingraham, and she has 3 of her 6 children currently serving in the Gulf. How are you coping today, Mrs. Ingraham?
Well, I'm trying to deal with it the best I know how.
How is that?
Well, I am keeping up with the news, but at the same time, I'm trying to carry on my regular routine. But my thoughts are always with my sons.
Most definitely. As I understand it, 2 of your sons are part of the ground forces and have been told that they're moving to the front. The other son is part of the air assault, an Apache helicopter pilot.
That's correct.
That must make your day incredibly long. The past 24 hours must have seemed like forever to you.
Yes, the time seemed to drag very slowly.
Have you
In the meantime, it's pretty hard.
Have you gotten much information from them? Have you heard from them?
The last time I heard from the oldest one, Oswald, that was just about a couple of weeks ago. He called. The younger ones, a letter, and yesterday a videotape from Irving.
What did he say in the videotape?
It wasn't that much. He was just telling us a little about how he feels.
It must be so tough for you to keep your emotions in check.
It is. It is. But I can tell you I have my moments. And when you see me and you think that she's getting through it, I'm crying on the inside.
Mrs. Ingraham, so are many other Americans, regardless of the way they feel about the Gulf. Americans everywhere are concerned about the fate of our men and women there, and our thoughts are certainly with you today.
Thank you.
Tom?
Thank you, Faith. Thank you, Mrs. Ingraham. We have with us now Edward Morris, who's the publisher of Petroleum Intelligence Weekly, the former Deputy Assistant to Secretary of State on International Energy Policy from 1979 to 1981. It means he bridged the Carter and the Reagan administrations. If it goes as well as the President hopes that it will, and the early indications are that it's going pretty well indeed, although the jury is not yet in on this one, and we have a swift and reasonably complete military victory there, and Saddam Hussein is no longer a player in the Middle East, what happens to American oil policy? Do we go back to business as usual?
Well, there's a risk that we're going to become very complacent, and that risk is something that stems from a phenomenon we've seen in the last day, namely the plunge in oil prices after the early signals of success came to the marketplace. It would appear as though oil prices are going to fall sharply again with peace, and that can lead to the kind of complacency we've had for the last decade.
Oil has been a great American narcotic for a long, long time now, and everyone has raised the idea that we've got to have some kind of hardcore energy policy. What do you think the chances are that one will come out of all of this?
Pretty low for two reasons. One is that we're a schizophrenic society. We're a society of consumers, the largest consumer society in the world, consuming 16 million barrels a day, and we're a oil-producing country, the second biggest in the world. That creates conflicts of interest within the society that are very difficult to resolve. On top of that, energy policy requires long-term stick-to-itiveness. It takes 10 years from the time you look for oil offshore until you find it, develop it, and bring it to the market. Yet our political system has a 4-year time horizon, and it's very hard to put in a coherent energy policy.
But President Bush could come out of this with an enormous amount of political capital. And could he invest that in an energy policy in which he would turn the country's attitude around?
He could do it, and we've made some start, but it's still hard to bridge the gap between our desire to drive, which means low-price gasoline, our desire to conserve, which would mean higher-priced gasoline, and our need to produce more, which also requires higher prices.
One of our most endearing characteristics as Americans is that we like things nice and tidy, black and white. We have this war, it's over, do we go back to business as usual? What are the other dangers from an oil policy point of view in the Persian Gulf and the rest of this decade, in your judgment?
Well, in the Persian Gulf itself, we've got to remember that the countries of the Gulf have been at war with one another for a decade. Peace will not necessarily bring stability. We don't know what's going to happen to the regimes of the Gulf, what greater participation among people will mean in terms of their desire for lower or higher oil prices. But the real danger, it strikes me, is not in the Gulf but outside the Gulf. Lurking on the horizon is the Soviet Union, the largest producer of oil in the world, whose energy production, oil production in particular, has plunged in the last 2 years. There's a real danger of a disruption taking place for political reasons. Next time around, not in the Middle East, but in the Soviet Union.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Morris, who is the publisher of Petroleum Intelligence Weekly. Thanks for being with us. We'll be back with continuing coverage of America at War, Operation Desert Storm, right after this. It does appear that an attack of some kind is underway tonight.
Last night, America went to war. Tonight, that story in a special one-hour edition of NBC Nightly News.
From Channel 4, this is a Gulf War News Extra.
Good afternoon. President Bush is scheduled to meet with his cabinet in just a few moments to discuss U.S. strategy. Meanwhile, Kuwaiti officials report devastating Iraqi casualties. A large hospital in Kuwait is now struggling to care for Iraqis injured during bombing raids. As darkness has once again fallen on Iraq, Allied warplanes reportedly are attacking Iraqi tanks. Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Colin Powell says the fighting is far from over. Saddam Hussein is showing no signs of surrendering. Iraqi propagandists are broadcasting claims of great success. Baghdad radio reports say that Iraqi forces shot down 44 Allied warplanes and 23 cruise missiles in the first 13 hours of the assault. They claimed several unexploded missiles were recovered in usable condition. But Allied officials dismissed those reports, saying that only 3 planes have been shot down. 1 American, 1 British, and the latest, a Kuwaiti jet fighter that went down while attacking Iraqi troops inside Kuwait. With 20,000 soldiers from Fort Campbell deployed in Operation Desert Storm, it's no surprise that the people who live near the fort are very concerned about what's going on. Some huddled around TVs and radios. Others stayed up all night talking about what has happened and what they think should happen next. Stephen Lynn has that story from Fort Campbell.
To the rest of the world, the liberation of Kuwait has begun, is what President Bush declared as he met the
This is for real.
I know it is.
The place is called Grandma's Kitchen. It's open all night, but tonight is different. The radios turn from music to news. The talks turn from women to war.
The president said tonight, we don't have nothing against the Iraq people.
No, it's just the leadership.
Hussein.
Yeah, just the leadership.
Grandma's sits just 3 miles up the road from Fort Campbell's front gate. Everyone who works here knows someone in the Army. Many of the people eating here do too.
What I call directed, level it completely off. It won't be nothing there but a sandbox. That'll be done it American way, buddy. Can you imagine what 2,700 pounds of shrapnel and explosives are going to do when it hits the ground? There's going to be a hole in there you can stick more than your head in, I guarantee you.
You're listening to live continuous coverage of war in the Persian Gulf.
Talking about the war is more to these men than just something to do between fill-ups. One of them fought in Korea, another in Vietnam.
I hope this is over with in a hurry, you know.
Well,
like I say, you know, if Mr. Bush wants to be like Mr. Truman, drop them small atomic bombs, and when people all group together, when you have 100,000 men grouped together like Saddam has, you know, you drop one of them small atomic bombs and get rid of them people in a hurry. I mean, that's the only thing they can understand is force.
Stephen Lynn, Channel 4 News, Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
We'll be right back in just a minute.
Dad, how about Totino's tonight?
Huh?
Thanks.
It's Totino's Party Pizza.
He didn't say yes. That's close enough.
With Totino's crisp crust, that irresistible taste.
Dad said Totino's great. When did he say that?
And now Totino's is made with leaner meats and it's low in cholesterol.
Totino's nice surprise.
William, I can explain.
Totino's, the pizza moms like kids to love.
Next time, let me do the talking.
Some exciting good things are happening at Red Food stores. We're making grocery shopping even better with new ways to save on every aisle. So look for this new symbol, the red check mark, all over Red Food. This red check means advertised specials, bonus buys, and everyday low prices. You'll find it on thousands of items in every store, and they change each week. So look for the Red Food check at your favorite store. It's another reason Red Food gives you only the best.
Here's a quick look at the latest weather forecast. This afternoon, mostly sunny with a high around 50. Tonight, it will be partly cloudy and cold with a low around 32. Tomorrow, it will be partly sunny and mild with a high somewhere in the 40s. That's Extra. We'll be back in 25 minutes, and now we return to NBC's coverage of America at War.
Channel 4 and NBC bringing you full Gulf coverage.
In the Department of Interior. So coherence would begin by creating a real energy department, that is, taking the nuclear weapons issues out of the Department of Energy and combining the energy part of the Department of Interior with the energy part of the Department of Energy.
Would it be a good idea to keep oil prices up for a while, to keep gasoline prices up for a while as a kind of an energy conservation inducer?
Well, the two are really separate issues. Gasoline prices are held up by tax policies. We have the lowest taxes in the world on gasoline. Europeans have gasoline at 4 to 5 times what we do, and that's not because crude oil is more expensive there. It's because of domestic taxes.
All right, Edward Morse, publisher of the Petroleum Intelligence Weekly, thanks very much for sharing your expertise with us today.
Glad to be here.
Good to see you. We'll be back with continuing coverage of America at War, Operation Desert Storm still storming in the Persian Gulf.
From NBC News, America at War continues. Here is Tom Brokaw.
Good afternoon again, everyone. We have a dramatic development now in the Persian Gulf that we want to tell you about. There is a report out of the BBC, that's the British Broadcasting Corporation, that the 2 crew members of that British Tornado fighter plane lost Thursday, that the 2 crew members managed to eject before the plane went down in flames, and we are now told that there will be a rescue operation launched to retrieve them. They have been located somewhere in the desert with an electronic beacon of some kind. They can probably hide out. That's a vast area, and they may be able to take cover, although they could be discovered by some Bedouin tribe that may be wandering through there. But they can probably take cover, and I'm sure that they have some survival gear with them as well. How they'll be rescued, we cannot say. It's also important to point out that the British Defense Secretary, Tom King,